Lauren Boebert had a really bad day. President Joe Biden called her out in her own district, and she had an unfortunate moment in a hearing. Well, this just might be one of my favorite things to cover doing this job. When Democrats get to go to Republicans' districts and say, hey, look at all the good things your constituents are getting that if you got your way, they wouldn't be getting. We'll also get to later in the segment Lauren Boebert getting crushed by a Social Security Administration official at a hearing this evening. But first, let's discuss Biden. I want to play a few clips from his remarks, including him directly calling out Lauren Boebert. And before playing that first clip, let me break down some of the details about this trip. So he's visiting CS Wind, which is the world's largest facility for wind tower manufacturing, and it's in Pueblo, Colorado. And here's some reporting on it from the Associated Press. CS Wind is undergoing a $200 million expansion that's expected to create 850 jobs by 2026 with help from the tax benefits in the Inflation Reduction Act, which included hundreds of billions of dollars of financial incentives. In addition, a new analysis from the Treasury Department said clean energy investments have mostly flowed to communities with below average wages and above average child poverty. The White House said the data indicates that Biden's policies are expanding economic opportunity. With that being said, here is the first moment from Joe Biden.
The United States Congress. The historic investments we're celebrating today is in Congressman Boebert's district. She's one of the leaders of this extreme mega movement. She, along with every single Republican colleague, voted against the law that made these investments in jobs possible. And that's not hyperbole, that's a fact. And then she voted to repeal key parts of this law. And she called this law a massive failure. You all know you're part of a massive failure? Tell that to the 850 Coloradans who get new jobs in Pueblo and CS Wind thanks to this law. Tell that to the local economy that's going to benefit from these investments.
So if Lauren Boebert had gotten her way, those 850 jobs wouldn't have been created in her district, not to mention the millions of jobs being created across the country, across Biden's different pieces of legislation. And I wish more Republican voters, that is, would realize all of the culture war nonsense Fox News screaming about gas stoves, Biden's going to take your gas stove, or drag queens are coming for you. They're just distracting you from the fact that Republican politicians, they're not making your life better. Meanwhile, with all their flaws, Biden and Democrats are actually getting things done, including things like the Inflation Reduction Act. And I put this map up on screen before, but you can see with the infrastructure law, all the different projects that are being invested in across the country. And that connects to a past time Biden had to call out one of these Republican Senator Tommy Tuberville, who tried to take credit for the investments in broadband internet in Alabama, something that, shockingly, he voted against. So again, Biden Democrats are helping the constituents of a lawmaker who's fighting to prevent that from happening. Then in the next moment in these remarks, Biden calls out more Republicans, in this case, Speaker of the House Mike Johnson and Representative Vern Buchanan, who visited the Sarasota Bradenton International Airport, another place that's being improved because of the infrastructure law. And again, shockingly, they both voted against it.
Matter of fact, the new Republican Speaker of the House, along with the Republican Congressman Vern Buchanan, just visited Sarasota, Florida yesterday to tour the construction of a new terminal at that airport. It's going to create thousands of jobs over time. The project is funded with nearly $30 million from the bipartisan infrastructure law. And it's going to generate more than $30 million for Florida multiple times over. And guess what? Both the Speaker and the Congressman voted against the law and spoke against the law. But now they're down there taking credit for it being built. As my mother would say, God love them. As one of my friends back home would say, that's real chutzpah. That's real chutzpah.
So the Sarasota Bradenton Airport is one of the fastest growing airports in the nation. And because of mostly Biden and Democrats, it's going to get another terminal to help with that growth. But Johnson and Buchanan are going there, and So we're touring around, ignoring that fact. It drives me crazy. And then in another moment that we'll watch in just a second, and this is super important, Biden celebrates the news, as is being reported here from Reuters. Gross domestic product increased at a 5.2% annualized rate last quarter, revised up from the previously reported 4.9% pace, the Commerce Department's Bureau of Economic Analysis said in its second estimate of third quarter GDP. That's incredible. As a reminder, Fox News and so many of these Republicans were saying, Biden's going to send us into a recession. It's just about to happen, just around the corner. Now we're getting those incredible figures. And then the job growth is super strong. It's been stunning. Unemployment under 4% month after month after month. Inflation coming down rapidly and sitting below other comparable economies post-pandemic. You just can't argue with that economic record. With that being said, here's more from Biden.
And just this morning we learned that our economy, just this new data out, our economy grew by over 5% in the last quarter. That's more growth. That's more than it grew under my predecessor in any quarter outside the pandemic, despite promises of massive tax cuts for the wealthy, and corporations would be, what they said, would supercharge the economy and trickle down to working folks. Not a whole lot trickled down on most kitchen tables I'm aware of. But when I took office, since then, the first 2 years, we created over 14 million brand new jobs, good paying jobs. And nearly 250,000 of those good paying jobs are here in Colorado alone. We've created close to, remember we were told we're not going to be the manufacturing capital of the world. How can we be the manufacturing capital of the world again? Well, we've created close to 800,000 manufacturing jobs, almost twice as many as the previous administration did in all 4 years. The unemployment rate has stayed below 4% for over 20 months in a row, the longest stretch in 50 years. And we've seen the highest share of working-age Americans in the workforce in 20 years.
And that is huge. And of course, there are massive problems still. Absolutely. But, and I won't go through all of the economic numbers and legislative victories that I've gone through so many times recently, but Biden coming into office in 2021, the situation that he took over, and then being able to oversee that kind of recovery is actually really stunning. And that's why we outpaced all of the other G7 countries in our recovery. It's why we weren't plunged into a recession like was promised by so many. Now, while Biden was in Lauren Boebert's district explaining how Democratic legislation that Lauren Boebert voted against is benefiting Boebert's constituents, Lauren Boebert was in Washington, D.C. Try to guess what she was doing. Making a fool of herself, indeed. Here's an incredible moment where she tries to make a point that the Social Security Administration workers aren't working hard enough because I guess some percentage of them are working remotely, and the witness just has a perfect response and uses it as an opportunity to point out it's policies like yours, Lauren, the underfunding of crucial programs that causes problems in our functioning, not remote work. Because over the years, Republicans, of course, have insisted on cutting taxes disproportionately for the wealthy and have refused to properly invest in certain programs, which is going to cause issues. Take a look.
You all are allowing delinquent employees to sit on their sofas at home instead of actually getting to work and doing their jobs. This is absolutely unacceptable.
So our employees are working whether they are in the office or at home, and they are.
Are you monitoring the work that they are doing from home on a regular basis?
Yes, we are.
Every employee, do you have the numbers of the hours that are submitted? Are you counting how many times they're logging into their computers and responding to casework?
So our employees are subject to the same performance management processes and oversight they are whether they're teleworking or working in an office. And we have systems in place that our managers use to schedule, assign, and track workloads. And that includes individual employee workloads in many cases. So real-time understanding of what actions are being processed at any particular given time. Additionally, our employees are required to be accessible to their supervisors, clients, colleagues, and external parties during work hours via a variety of means, including instant messaging, video platforms, and telephone. They are connected to the workplace, whether they are in the office or at the home.
Then why is the backlogs for Social Security applicants increased from 41,000 to 107,000?
Because we've been historically underfunded for a number of years now.
I don't think you're underfunded. You're funded at the Nancy Pelosi levels. At the Democrat levels, we just continued that same funding.
So I would say
at pandemic level spending.
So I would say we'd have an increase of over 8 million beneficiaries over the last 10 years. At the same time, we experienced our lowest work staffing levels at the end of FY22. That's a math problem. I mean, that is a problem. If you have those workloads, increasing and you don't have the staff to take care of those workloads, you're going to have the backlogs that you're talking about, Representative.
It always cracks me up when Lauren Boebert tries to ask questions about things that she obviously has no idea about. So I guess when she just asks questions, and every time in these settings, the witness will give some thoughtful answer about the details of what she asked, and they're really putting an effort to the response, and she clearly just has no idea what's going on. Now, I do want to take this as an opportunity to quickly break down what we should be doing with Social Security. Often Republicans will say we have to, quote unquote, deal with Social Security, but all their proposed solutions include cuts to benefits. Instead of doing that, step one should be this, and I'll actually read from a really good CBS article that we've gone over in the past that puts it very clearly. It writes, Social Security is heading for a funding cliff with its trust fund reserves potentially becoming insolvent by 2033, an outcome that would mean beneficiaries would face a 25% shave on their monthly checks. But there's a way to fix most of the funding shortfall, policy experts say. Smash the cap. That refers to the Social Security tax cap, a feature of the program since it was launched in the 1930s following the Great Depression. Essentially, any income over the earnings cap isn't subject to the Social Security payroll tax, which is 6.2% for workers and an additional 6.2% for employers. In 2023, the tax cap stands at $160,200, which means any income above that amount is exempt from the payroll tax. As a result, middle and lower income workers bear a much greater tax burden in funding Social Security than the 6% of Americans who earn above the threshold, according to a new analysis from the left-leaning Center for Economic and Policy Research. Quote, if you make over that cap like 6% of the population does, you could be paying 1% of your income or even less than that, noted Sarah Rollins, program associate at CEPR. Yet a middle income worker, and I know this is a lot of information, but just stick with me because it's really important. Middle income worker earning less than the $160,200 cap in 2023 will pay an effective tax rate that is 6 times higher than the millionaire's tax burden, she noted. So as is so often the case, step one needs to be fixing our out of whack tax system. In this case, apply that Social Security payroll tax to money above $160,200. There's no reason for somebody who makes less than that to have the tax applied to all of their income, whereas someone who makes more than that has a lot of dollars that aren't being touched. So fix that first instead of going down these ridiculous roads that Republicans often suggest. Again, often cutting benefits. And who knows what Lauren Boebert specifically would say her solution is. Probably, she has no idea. But anyways, since Social Security was brought up, I wanted to discuss that since I haven't in a while. But the point is, Biden's getting things done. Boebert will hopefully lose in 2024. Before you go, don't forget to become a member at lukebeasley.com/membership to get the bonus show Monday through Friday. Plus, follow me on Threads at Luke Beasley Official, Instagram at Luke Beasley Official, X at Luke B. Beasley, and sign up for the Beasley Brief, a daily morning newsletter that summarizes the previous day's events by going to lukebeasleyshow.com/brief. And I'll talk to you all next time.